Welcome to Season 8 of Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from around the globe who understand the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. Today's episode is brought to you by Grand Huron International, an on-demand coaching provider for individuals and companies. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the show. So welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today I am joined by the fabulous Karen Faith, who is CEO and founder of Others Unlimited, a company that offers empathy training. She's also an ethnographer and strategist specializing in actionable wisdom, and I promise I'll ask about that. With 2 decades of experience in ethnographic discovery to inform branding, marketing, and product design, her work utilizes tools from multiple disciplines to empower teams to define, understand, and solve problems, from the granular to the grandiose. Welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you.
We were having a little pre-chit chat, and it got so delicious that I said, let's stop and let's get this on tape because it's so interesting what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for this conversation. I'd like to ask about something that you wrote in some notes to me, that you believe empathy is a practice and not a feeling. Mm-hmm. And it's also available to everyone, not just what you call tender-hearted. So what do you mean by all that? Tell us what you mean.
Yeah, I think, most of us were taught to practice empathy using the golden rule, right? To just consider another person's experience. And the word is so much used almost synonymously with compassion. And of course, compassion is a welcome byproduct. But I think that the practice of empathy, the biggest difference with compassion is that empathy practice doesn't require someone to be in pain. You can have empathy and practice empathy with someone in order to understand what makes them feel powerful, what makes them feel strong, what's bringing them joy. That, as an ethnographer, that kind of research, at the core of that research is understanding another person's experience, the totality of that experience, whether or not they're suffering. And so I kind of wanted to separate empathy from compassion just for the sake of definition. Of course, people say that I can empathize, or I feel empathy, and that's effective empathy, and there's a place for it. But I like to talk about cognitive empathy in terms of the skill set, in order to help folks know that you don't have to be really touchy-feely to practice this. That this is a cognitive practice of expanding one's perspective that's available to anybody. It's all you need is curiosity, really.
So what do you think so let's backtrack, because I don't know enough about ethnography. So like, you studied ethnography, you are an ethnographer. What does that mean? And how does that inform your work so that you can actually teach people to expand their field of perspective?
Ethnography is an immersive style of qualitative research. It is the closest to taking a walk in your shoes kind of research. Sometimes you might actually do something like that literally, where, if I want to know what it's like to sit at your desk, I'm going to sit at your desk, not just ask you what it's like, And so ethnography is this style of research involves, usually I will be with people in their homes. I'll be with people at work. I'll commute with them. I'll eat dinner with them. I have gone on dates with people. I have, not me dating, observing the date. It's about me having that experience as authentically as I can, to get as close as I can to understanding what that person is experiencing. So the skills of ethnography involve non-judgmental reception, and something that I actually call in my practice unconditional welcome, where I have got to be able to receive absolutely anyone in any state, in any condition that they are, with curiosity and with openness and with this kind of willingness to receive whatever it is they have to share with me. And that practice, when I started to train young ethnographers, that training them to do that was such a fascinating and amazing journey. And it involved, how do I listen deeply? How do I observe? How do I look at the places in myself that are judgmental and address those things? And that kind of curriculum is what ended up becoming the empathy training curriculum that I've been developing now, that I'm teaching now. But it started as, learning to train young researchers.
Oh, that is so cool to know that. And I'm wondering,
as you became better at your practice,
Mm-hmm.
how did it change your personal relationships? Because I imagine it did.
Yes. Yeah, that's a harder question because personal relationships are not research relationships. And I think that, when I was working full time as a researcher, the question that I got most often from my friends are like, "Are you researching us right now?" And I'm like, "No, a little, but no." And it's kind of I'll tell you, in my personal life, my default is not to listen. I am a talker. I love to talk. I love to talk all the time. And I have to, I used to say that I like to learn things from people to whom those things did not come naturally. I don't want to learn from someone who's a natural at something because they don't know where all the trapdoors are. I want to learn from someone who's failed a lot and who's had to practice that. And I feel that way as a person who teaches listening. I feel like I'm a great teacher of listening because my natural state is to do the talking. So I have some knowledge around the effort that it takes to pay attention and like really zoom into someone. So this is something that I struggle with in my personal relationships because while I feel like I'm a compassionate person and I feel like I can practice empathy, I think that I don't think it's anyone's default. We're always defaulting to our own point of view. And it actually sometimes makes me feel a little, I get a little imposter syndrome when I'm doing a bad job in my personal relationships. And I think, oh my God, who am I to be telling people how to do this when it's so, so hard? But I also think that it has helped me in difficult moments of conflict. I have been able to lean on the skill of unconditional welcome and do my best to try to stop my reactivity and think about what is this other person experiencing, and what are the messages that they're hearing from me that I may not be intending to say, and so, yeah, it does help. I mean, it's a skill set that I still have to use intentionally though.
I love that answer. It was that was a very thoughtful answer. And now I want to ask you about, like, to take it from the theory to the practical. I'm sure that we are get into sort of where all the applications of this work is useful. But let me just start with sort of, like, let's say you're sitting on a plane next to somebody, you're at a dinner party and you're, sitting next to somebody that you didn't bring, or whatever. And you're having a conversation. You want to have this welcome. What did you call it? Unconditional welcome.
Unconditional welcome.
You want to learn to hold that space where somebody can be who they are, and then you just accept them as they are. So what are some of the little early tools to doing that?
I will tell you the very first one is to imagine it. And this was a part of the talk that I gave this week too, is that I actually had this experience with a research subject who, my unprofessional self did not like. I did not want to connect with her. I was not enjoying her. It was not fun. And I realized I'm not going to be able to learn about this woman unless I receive her. I've got to receive her. And I visualized this, and it came from a meditation that I had done some years before, and it just kind of came to me in the moment. I kind of visualized this. The way it appears to me is like a shiny soap bubble, filled with this welcome, right? And with my breath, I inflate it. And I let this be this space where everything in that space is totally welcome. And I let this space get big enough to contain my entire body and then her entire body. And then now we are in here together and everything in here is okay. Everything here is welcome. It's not tolerance. This is really important. It's not tolerance. It's not like this is against my will, but I'll allow it. No, it's like everything here is welcome. Everything here is welcome. And I actually visualize this first. And after that, it all kind of unfolds by itself because they feel it. The other person feels it. The other person knows it. And you don't have to have, certain words to say or certain questions to ask, because then it's there. The space is created. Mm-hmm. And then, people connect with one another.
And it's such a gift for other people to feel like they are in a situation of unconditional welcome, right? Where you don't feel judged. Because isn't it such a shitty feeling to feel like somebody is like judging you or scrutinizing what you say. You're walking on pins and needles, right? So, okay, I can imagine the applications all over the place, but why don't I let you ask? So where does your work come in handy?
Wow. Well, you asked about my personal relationships, and this certainly, I would say the easiest place to apply it is usually in like customer service situations. They're tense, or, these kinds of like interactions with strangers who are annoying me or not doing what I want them to be doing. And just kind of like dropping it and realizing that that person is the center of their story, which definitely has all kinds of elements I know nothing about. And I'm just the central figure in my story, which has all these elements that they know nothing about. And if I can just, inflate that bubble right here, it's probably okay. It's probably not a big deal. And that helps a lot. That helps a ton. I also do, this is maybe, I don't know if it's going to be too personal or not, but in my love relationship, I also have, we make a weekly dedicated time to spend an hour with each other intentionally in that space. And we choose to have our difficult conversations then only when we have created the place of unconditional welcome. And when we feel that kind of safety to be honest with kindness and to be in that place of mutual welcome. And it's super transformative for that. I haven't found anything more powerful.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm imagining, so back into the customer care paradigm for a second, how much health and wellness comes from deploying this kind of strategy or this tactic or whatever you want to use as a word. If let's say I'm a customer care person and you call me and you're like super annoyed, right? You have nothing against me. I just represent the company that's annoying you for whatever reason. You want a solution to your problem. You want some remedy. And I can't give that to you because of whatever the chain of command, or there's just limits on what I'm able to do in my role. And you're like angry at me now. All of a sudden, I think when deploying what you've just described, you don't take it personally anymore, and you're able to respond to a person, just acknowledging, empathizing with a sense of frustration, that probably has a very great health and wellness benefit to the employee, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I've noticed that a lot of people think about empathy in terms of me trying to understand you, but another empathy practice is helping you understand me. And so in a customer service situation, if I'm responding to someone who's really, really, really angry, they may not even know how they seem to me or how they sound to me. And so part of practicing empathy is reflecting back to them, hey, it sounds like you're really angry. That's a way of saying like, this is what I'm receiving from you. That reflecting back what my experience is right now with you is a way of practicing empathy. And that's and also not absorbing it, but just reflecting it back like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm hearing. And that sharing your own experience is a way of showing someone else empathy, practicing empathy with someone else.
And I imagine in sort of the broader society, how helpful this could be with people who have really different opinions, different political and ideological standpoints, how effective this could be. So you've developed training, right? Training curriculum for your company. Can you tell us what's involved and what it's based on?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of different tracks. So we do also offer ethnographic research as a service for brands who want to understand their customers better. And we teach ethnography to strategists and researchers who want to do this style of research. That is, a part of it. For empathy training, there are basically kind of two ways to go about it. One is empathy for your customers. The other is empathy for your colleagues. So one of them is sort of I don't super love the term, but like empathy at scale. Like, how do I understand this group of people? How do I understand this community or this culture of people that I want to reach or communicate with? And those skills are foundationally the same as the one-on-one, but they in practice look different and they use different tools. So, and then the empathy between colleagues, that really looks like, I mean, we go down to the basics of how do you listen? How do you ask questions? How do you adapt your communication style to the communication style of the person that you're speaking to? How do you even receive, like, you gave me some eyebrows, so I'll explain. So there's when I was conducting ethnographic interviews, I noticed that a lot of times I would get hung up because maybe I'm talking to someone who I ask them one question and they're going to give me 50,000 words, and it's more than I can handle, and it's also like it's maybe off topic, and we only have so much time, and there's this kind of thing. Or I'm talking to someone who's giving me monosyllables, and I need more, and I'm not getting anything. And so it's like, and those are two, kind of basic examples, but there are more variables than that. And I kind of identified 5 different qualities of communication that have different poles, where, being verbose or not is one of them. And they're not good or bad. They're just things to notice about someone so that you can form your question and ask in a way that helps them answer. So I am not going to necessarily ask a super verbose person an extremely open-ended question. I'm going to ask them a more specific question. Whereas someone who is relatively nonverbal, I might ask them to choose an image that describes what they're experiencing. I might ask them something, I might ask in a completely different way to just help give them tools to express if they're not comfortable with words. So that's just one of the things. How do we adapt to one another and understand that, neurodiversity is real, and we are not made of the same stuff, and we do not do things the same way. And so even the way that we ask questions can be adapted and can be empathetic. So listening, asking questions, and the biggest piece, which is a part of all of it, is something that I call self-witnessing. Self-witnessing is just, it's doing this on me so that I know what's my communication style. How do I seem to other people? Where are my blind spots? What are the things about myself that I try to hide? And what are the things that I try to, show, and why, and if I know more about that, then I'm going to know more about how others are receiving me and how I'm receiving others. One of my favorite cartoons, and this was the ethnographer that trained me. He showed me this cartoon, this incredible conversation in the jungle between a giraffe and a lion. And the giraffe says, have you seen this human family down by the river? They just moved in. They're amazing. And they make the sound like, and the lion goes, I don't know, but I've been seeing this family, but they make this sound. And it's because the family is responding to them differently. And we are all like that with each other. I had there was someone doing my hair. I might cry a little bit. There was someone doing my hair on Friday night for this event that I was a part of. And she asked me what I did. And I told her that I was an ethnographer, and she, we talked about it. And she said, she was a Black woman. And she said, I think I'd be really good at that. And I almost tried to be a detective, but I realized I could never be a detective because I don't fit in anywhere. And it broke my heart because I said, she's like, I stand out too much. And I was like, not everywhere, certainly not. And there are places that I stand out quite a bit too. There are places where I wouldn't be able to be inconspicuous that she would be. And it broke my heart that she felt like she didn't fit in anywhere. And it reminded me of so many times in my research practice where I've been, tasked with understanding a group of people who I don't fit in with at all. And I've had to overcome that boundary. And sometimes I haven't overcome it because everyone's responding to me and the way that I look. This is the body that I have, this is the personality that I have. And like, I can try to be neutral, but I'm not no one. And we also need her. I need her in the field as well. I need her to connect with people as well. And it was just a powerful moment of realizing how important self-witnessing is, how important it is to understand that I'm bringing a whole person into an environment that of course changes that environment.
Today's episode was brought to you by Grand Huron International, an on-demand coaching provider for individuals and companies.
I wanted to ask a question about, for those who, okay, so I'll just use myself. Explain to me how doing ethnography with a group of people would actually help a company understand their customer base better. Like, I don't know if you can go to an example without outing the company or whatnot, but like, just out of curiosity, I understand in theory, but what does that really look like? What kind of practical information can you bring back to a company to help them understand their customer better so that they could meet their needs better?
Yeah, it's, I'll tell you that the really special thing about ethnography is, as opposed to other kinds of customer research, and let me just use like customer satisfaction interviews as an example. Customer satisfaction interviews where you have written a set of questions that have probably been approved by multiple departments, and they might even be, and are usually are, multiple choice. So you've actually already written the answers as well. You don't know how they're going to respond, but you may find some insights that you didn't expect, but you're not really going to get information that you didn't expect because you already wrote it. Mm-hmm. Ethnography, because of the open-ended nature, because of the immersive nature, because of the ethnography multiplies variables rather than reducing them. And so, for example, and let me just finish that thought, that you're always going to find more than you were looking for. And the hard part is deciding which of those things are actionable and are relevant, are things that you should pay attention to and dig into more. But you're always going to find things that you didn't know that you didn't know. And that's why I love ethnography, because those insights, are the ones that really change things. I think I can tell you, I was doing a project recently for a financial services company that wanted to help develop financial services specifically for folks who were unbanked. And it was through a residential, it was through their landlords. They wanted to do it through the building of a kind of low income building. And we found a lot of extraordinary things. But one of the things that we found, just to give you the most basic example, was that when we were asking people what they really needed in their lives, they needed, many of them needed domestic violence services. Many of them needed a security guard. And I'm asking them about, do you want coaching on investing and saving? And they're like, not even close to that, And so, and what's really lovely about this client that I was working with is that they were absolutely willing to hear that and were ready to rethink the suite of services they were offering and reimagine, what other ways can we support these people and really help them, because their hearts were in the right place. They wanted to do the right thing. But what they wanted to offer wasn't the immediate need, of that group. And that happens a lot. That happens all the time in less dramatic and more dramatic situations, that ethnography tells you what you don't know that you didn't know, So that's
super excellent. Amazing example. That really brings that to life. Thank you so much. What do you think might be the most misunderstood aspect of empathy in your work? In work.
Yeah, I think that that people, I think empathy has a bad reputation for being soft, for being sentimental, for being like, there's this kind of like concern eyebrows, like the kind of like, oh, I feel for you. And it's always connected to someone who's in pain. And like, as we were talking about, like that kind of using it synonymous with compassion, I feel like, psychopaths are actually very good at empathy. Understanding they are good at tapping in to what a person fears, what a person needs, what's going to make that person trust them. The skills of empathy can be used for good or evil, but they're skills. And so I think that, that for me is the most misunderstood thing, that that empathy is always tender and it's always compassionate and it's always for the good of the other person. Not always. It's not always. It's a skill set which expands your perspective. And what you do with that perspective is, between you and you.
Perfect. And what do you think, as a kind of like taking it to the other side, what is the most astounding thing you feel like you've learned, or astonishing thing you've learned through your research about people?
Yeah, the practice of unconditional welcome is the absolute biggest thing that I have discovered. The most powerful thing that I have discovered about unconditional welcome is that it is both incredibly easy and accessible. And once the space is open, it is universally transformative. It's like, it feels like being immediately, oh gosh, everything I'm trying to say sounds really new agey, but it's pure love. It's pure love. And it's the good kind of love, not affection, not admiration, not adoration. It's this universal, limitless love. And it's available. It's right there. It's like, it's right there. And when you tap into it, when I tapped into it and felt how it changed me and it changed this person and it changed where we were able to meet one another. Yeah, it was, I'm not going to let go of it. It's the core of the practice for me. Unconditional welcome.
I mean, I think whether you're a fan of Oprah or not, and I happen to be in the category of fan.
Sure.
She is a great interviewer. I mean, there are reason why people go, bare their souls to Oprah. And she made a very intentional decision somewhere along the lines in her career that she didn't want to abuse of that trust by, just kind of spreading people's lives on the screen, but she wanted to actually leverage that for positive change in the world and for people to live better lives. But so often I remember her saying that, like, reflecting on her career as an interviewer, she said that a fundamental human need that we have is to feel heard and seen. And I think that's what you're describing when you're talking about this love, is just to like the value the person for the inherent value they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Love is what happens when we stop trying to figure out who deserves it.
Love that one. Oh, can you say that again?
Yeah, I'm stealing from my own talk from the other night. Love is what happens when we stop trying to figure out who deserves it. When we welcome absolutely anyone exactly as they are in that moment, no questions asked.
That's a good one. By the time this video goes out, maybe your TEDx talk will be added to the description. If not, I'll go back retroactively and add it so people can watch it. Karen, I have a last question for you. I love asking this of my guests because it's always juicy and unpredictable. Here, I'll be the ethnographer. Can you think of a time in your life when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been very, very lucky to be on the receiving end of quite a lot in my life. And I will tell you that all of them I could tell you about any of them and they would be big, but my very favorite one, a couple of years ago. So one part of my story is that I have complex post-traumatic stress, which has come with a lot of very interesting side effects. And I would say that I qualify as being neurodiverse in some ways. And so I have carried this in my professional life. I have carried this fear that that they're going to find out that I'm crazy. They're going to find out that I'm messed up. They're going to find out that I can't do things that other people can do, or that, it's like this, it's, an imposter syndrome thing, but it's also just like, I felt like I was carrying this secret that if anybody knew how much I was struggling, then they would never let me do the things that they're letting me do. And they'd never let me talk to the people they're letting me talk to. Mm-hmm. And so I was like holding this. And about 3 years ago, I had a beautiful experience. Actually went to Design Up in Bangalore, India, which is where I met our common friend Nihal. And, you know, and the flight back, which was of course, you know, long and arduous. I had a terrible jet lag, and all kinds of different things were going on. And I went into work the next morning having not slept, and then a couple of other triggers happened, and I made a bunch of mistakes in a couple of 48 hours. Some of them more embarrassing than others, but there were, you know, just a series of mistakes and emotional responses to things that actually triggered my then manager, whom I love and respect, and who is just one of the most amazing professionals I have ever worked with. It triggered her to alert HR that she had concerns about my mental health, which was absolutely horrifying. And the CEO of that company, Michael Ventura, called me on the phone to tell me what had happened. And he said to me, I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with you. And that I let them know there's nothing wrong with you. And he's like, I see what has happened, and I know what's going on, and I know that you're okay, and that you are tired, and that you need some sleep, and that no one, like, he assured me that he knew that I was valuable, and he knew that what I had to offer was intact, and that I was intact, and that these kind of weird things that happen were not at all impacting his view of me. And he stood up for me with my manager and with HR to say, she's all right. And we actually made some changes to the way that I worked, and even my work from home agreement, and all kinds of things to make sure that I was able to take care of myself. And I'm telling you that that was one of the biggest and most beautiful and generous acts of empathy that when my biggest fear came true, that this person who I was so scared was going to find out that I was not okay, was able to see that I am okay. And that meant everything to me.
What a powerful story.
Yeah.
What a powerful story.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have the capacity to do that. And I think that's why I love asking this question so much, maybe because I am regularly reminded through each of the interviews, whether it's the small things on a little, daily basis, or a big act of kind of like having someone's back and recognizing someone's value and just, steadfastly honoring that,
Mm-hmm.
That we all have access to being empathic in the world, and that it does make the difference to how people navigate the world. And if we all did a little bit more of that, what would happen at an aggregate level?
Indeed.
Well, perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Karen. Really appreciate the time. Again, we'll have more information about your work in the description below. Feel free to add comments to all the listeners. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to meet you again. Well, I guess see you again. Yeah, we've had one conversation before. See you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
What if you had access to your own council of coaches to help you break free of your thinking clutter, make that important decision, and liberate you from whatever is holding you back? At Grand Huron International, you get to choose the coach of your choice anytime from anywhere. Visit grandhuroninternational.ca and harness the power of on-demand coaching today.